In Bracken Flats, every farmer had the same spring ritual. They dug stones out of the soil. They cursed them. They hauled them to the wash. But one broke farmer looked at those stones one morning and did something that made the whole county think he had finally snapped. He stopped throwing them away. He dragged them back to the edge of his wheat field and started building a wall. To understand why that looked insane, you have to understand Bracken Flats. It sat in a long open trough between low prairie ridges, the kind of place where the sky felt too large and the wind had room to gather speed. The soil was rich enough to make a banker smile, dark, deep, full of the old organic matter that should have grown heavy wheat, clean barley, and corn tall enough to hide a truck. But the land had two brutal habits. First, the wind came straight out of the west like a blade. Every March and October, it tore across the flats for days at a time, drying the topsoil, bruising the seedlings, and turning exposed fields into brown smoke. Second, the ground was packed with stones. Old glacial stones, granite knobs, limestone teeth, iron-red chunks of field rock buried just deep enough to destroy a plow. Every winter, frost lifted a new crop of them to the surface. And every spring, before the seed drills could roll, families spent weeks doing the work nobody got paid for. They called it rock picking. But in Bracken Flats, it looked more like punishment. Men walked bent over for 10 hours. Women drove old flatbed trucks beside them. Kids threw stones until their shoulders shook. Then the stones were dumped in Cottonmouth Wash, a dry ravine at the south edge of the county, where 3 generations of farmers had thrown away the same problem. By 2001, Evan Rourke was almost out of choices. He owned 112 acres on the western lip of Bracken Flats, right where the wind entered the valley before it had lost even a mile of speed. His father had warned him about that parcel. Good dirt, bad position. That was how he had said it. But Evan had taken the land anyway. He had a wife named May, a leaking roof, a 1976 Massey tractor, and a loan officer who had stopped using friendly language. No matter what he tried, the farm stayed behind. If he fertilized heavy, the wind stole the moisture. If he planted early, the gusts sandblasted the shoots. If he planted late, frost threatened him from the other side. And every season, the stones came back. In the second week of April, Evan was working the north field with a chisel plow when the whole tractor slammed sideways. The steering wheel punched him in the ribs. The rear tires skidded in loose soil. He killed the engine and climbed down into the wind. There, wedged under the broken shank, was a pale limestone boulder as big as a feed sack. The steel tooth had snapped clean in two. Evan knelt in the dirt with one hand on the broken iron. He did not curse. That was what scared May later when he told her. He just stared. $800 for the part. Another day lost. Maybe 2. And beyond the tractor, his young wheat was already leaning, every green blade combed flat by the western gusts. That was when Harlan Pike arrived. Harlan owned 600 acres closer to the creek, protected by cottonwoods and a low ridge. He had new combines, new bins, and an accountant who understood how to buy tired families before they admitted they were tired. His white pickup rolled to the fence line without a speck of mud on the doors. Harlan leaned out the window and looked at the broken plow. That field is eating you alive, Evan. Evan stood up slowly. Harlan nodded toward the boulder. That little rock just cost you a week. The wind will cost you the rest. I can make the bank go quiet by Friday. He had made the same offer twice already. A check big enough to cover the debt, not big enough to replace the land. That dirt is better than yours, Evan said. Harlan smiled like he had been waiting for that. Then why does it keep bankrupting you? He drove away before Evan answered. For the rest of the day, Evan fought the boulder with a crowbar, chain, and a homemade stone boat built from warped oak planks. By sundown, his hands were split at the knuckles. His ribs burned every time he breathed. He hitched the stone boat to the tractor and dragged the limestone boulder toward Cottonmouth Wash. The ravine was already full. Thousands of stones lay below him. Gray, red, white, black. A century of labor thrown into a dry scar in the earth. Evan unhooked the chain, braced his boots, and rolled the boulder toward the edge. Then the wind hit. Not a gust. A wall. It shoved dust across the field and nearly took his hat into the ravine. Evan grabbed the boulder to steady himself. And that was when the thought came. The wind was the thing he could not stop. The stones were the thing he could not move fast enough. Every farmer in Bracken Flats had been fighting both. They spent weeks removing the only heavy, stubborn, weatherproof material their fields produced, and then wondered why the land was naked when the wind arrived. Evan looked down into the ravine. Then he looked west, into the open throat of the flats. He did not push the boulder over. He turned the tractor around. The next morning, Evan began hauling stones in the wrong direction. Not south to Cottonmouth Wash. West, to the boundary fence where the wind first struck his farm. He drove line after line across the field, pulling rocks out of the seedbed and dropping them along the ridge. By noon, his neighbor, Amos Bell, had stopped his truck on the road. Amos was 71, kind enough to loan a tool, and old enough to distrust anything that had not already worked for 40 years. "Evan," he called, "the wash is the other way." "I know." Amos squinted at the piles. "Then what in God's name are you doing?" Evan wiped mud from his cheek. "Keeping them." "For what?" "A wall." Amos stared at him, then laughed once because he thought Evan was joking. When Evan did not laugh back, Amos lowered his voice. "You missed this planting window. The bank won't care how pretty your rocks are. If I plant without stopping the wind," Evan said, "I won't have a crop for the bank to take." For the next 26 days, Bracken Flats watched a man ruin his own schedule. While other farmers drilled seed into straight dark lines, Evan stacked stones. At first, people thought he was making a crude fence. Then they saw the trench, 2 feet deep, filled with the flattest rocks he could find. Then they saw him sort stones by shape. Broad ones for the base, long tie stones through the middle. Small wedges tapped into gaps with the back of a hammer. He had been reading everything he could find at the county library. Old farm bulletins, books on Irish field walls, photographs of sheep country in places where wind never seemed to rest. The secret was not to build a solid barrier. A solid wall would have been a mistake. When fast wind slams into a flat, sealed surface, it vaults over the top, curls downward, and hammers the ground behind it with violent turbulence. That would have ripped his wheat apart. Evan was building something stranger. A filter. The stones did not fit perfectly, and he did not want them to. He left thousands of little openings between them, just enough for the air to pass through, break apart, and lose its violence. The wall would not stop the wind. It would bleed it. But knowledge did not make the work lighter. By the 3rd week, Evan's shoulders had gone numb. He wrapped his fingers in electrical tape because the skin would not stay closed. One evening, he lifted a granite slab to the 4th course, felt something pop near his ribs, and had to stand bent over until the pain stopped flashing white. May found him there after dark, still working by the yellow light of a lantern. She carried a thermos of coffee in one hand and a bank envelope in the other. "They called again," she said. Evan did not turn around. May stood beside the half-built wall and looked across the field. The west line now had a jagged spine running along it, ugly and beautiful at the same time. They asked for revised yield numbers. "What did you tell them?" "I told them we had no numbers." Evan pressed a wedge stone into place. "Tell them we're done losing soil." May's eyes filled, but she did not argue. Across the county, Harlan Pike did. At the diner, he called it Rourke's grave marker. At the parts shop, He said Evan was using bankruptcy to build folk art. He told anyone who would listen that Bracken Flats did not need old country stone piles. It needed capital. Hydraulic rock crushers, polymer soil binders, deep tillage, modern answers. Harlan's crews were doing exactly that on his creek ground, crushing stones to gravel, spraying chemical stabilizer, and keeping the equipment moving. Evan heard every word. He kept stacking. By late June, the wall stood almost 6 feet high and close to half a mile long. It was thick at the base, tapered toward the top, and rough enough to look like it had grown out of the field instead of being built by hand. Only then did Evan plant the last of his wheat and short-season corn. It was dangerously late, too late, according to every neighbor who drove by slowly and looked away. By August, the difference was obvious. Harlan's fields were tall and even. Evan's were green but behind, thin in places, and not yet headed the way they should have been. Harlan brought an appraiser out to the road one afternoon and pointed at Evan's late crop like a man showing evidence. "October will finish him," he said. He was almost right. In the second week of September, a low-pressure system stalled over the northern plains and dragged a cold, violent front across Bracken Flats. The radio warned of sustained winds above 50 miles an hour, with gusts near 70. Not ordinary prairie weather. A field-killing gale. All afternoon, farmers chained barn doors, moved fuel tanks, and parked machinery behind buildings. At dusk, the western sky turned a bruised green-gray. Evan stood on the porch with May's hand locked around his wrist. Neither of them spoke. The wind arrived after dark. It struck the flats so hard the house trembled. Dust hit the windows like thrown sand. From the porch, Evan could see nothing beyond the yard light except brown air and flying debris. Somewhere in the dark, a barn door tore loose. A sheet of tin cartwheeled across the county road. Harlan's unprotected creek fields took the full force of the storm. His soil binders, expensive and clean on paper, could not hold the top layer once the wind got under it. By midnight his black loam was moving east in a choking river. Corn that had stood shoulder-high all summer was flattened, twisted, and snapped at the base. But on Evan's west line, the stone wall took the first blow. The gale slammed into it with enough force to make loose dust explode upward. The wall did not move. The stones locked downward into their own weight. And then the gaps went to work. Air forced through 1,000 crooked passages. The pressure broke. The velocity fell apart. Behind the wall, the storm was still alive, but it was wounded. Evan stepped off the porch despite May shouting his name. He walked into the field with his coat pulled tight and stopped 50 yards behind the stone line. On the far side, the world screamed. On his side, the wheat bent and rose again. Bent and rose again. The soil stayed down. The stalk stayed rooted. For the first time since his father had warned him about that land, Bracken Flats felt quiet. Not silent, never silent, but protected. Evan had not beaten the wind. He had made it spend its anger before it reached the crop. By dawn the county looked scraped raw. Harlan Pike stood beside what was left of his corn, holding a broken stalk in one hand. His fields were not merely flattened, they were exposed. The richest topsoil had blown into road ditches and fence lines. His combine sat behind the machine shed with cracked windshields and grit packed into the seals. His fall income had been taken in one night. 2 miles away, Evan and May walked their rows in the pale morning light. The wheat was wet with dew. The corn leaves were bruised at the tips, but standing. The dark soil still hugged the roots. May pressed both hands over her mouth. "We made it," she whispered. And for 1 hour, Evan believed that was true. Then the cold settled in. The storm had pulled Arctic air behind it. And Evan's crop was still late. That was the cost of the wall. Every day he had spent stacking stone had been stolen from the growing season. His plants had survived the wind, but they had not fully matured. The wheat heads needed time. The corn needed heat. The local forecast gave him neither. Within 48 hours, the temperature was expected to fall below freezing. A hard frost at that stage would be ruin. Wearing a different coat, it would freeze the water inside the plant tissue, rupture the cells, and leave the crop black by noon. Evan had saved the field from the wind only to watch the calendar become the enemy. For 2 days, he barely slept. He walked the rows. He checked the grain. He listened to the radio until the numbers felt personal. 32, 30, 29. On the third night, the thermometer outside the kitchen window dropped to 28 degrees. Evan sat at the table in his coat. May had gone quiet in the chair across from him. There was nothing left to do. No machine to fix. No stone to lift. No neighbor to call. Just the cold, settling over the farm in the dark. Before sunrise, Evan pushed back from the table and walked outside. The yard grass cracked under his boots. The pickup windshield was white with frost. He did not hurry toward the field. He already knew what frozen immature corn looked like. He had seen it in other years. Blackened leaves, soft stalks, a sour smell by afternoon. But as he crossed the yard, something looked wrong. A shimmer hung low over the first rows. Not fog, not dust. It moved like heat over a summer road. Evan stopped. Then he walked faster. At the edge of the field, he reached for a corn leaf, expecting it to snap. It bent in his fingers. Soft, green, alive. He stepped deeper into the rows. The air changed. Near the stone wall, it was warmer. Not warm like summer, but warm enough. Evan put his bare palm against a granite block in the wall. He pulled it back like he had touched a stove. The stone was giving off heat. For a moment, he simply stared. Then he understood what he had built without meaning to build it. Not just a windbreak, a battery. All autumn, the wall had been drinking in sunlight. Tons of stone had absorbed heat during the day and held it after the sun went down. When the frost slid into bracken flats, the wall released that heat slowly back into the air. And because the wall also blocked the moving cold wind, the warmth stayed pooled around the crop. The frost had settled on his truck, on his roof, on the grass in the yard, but not on the rows beside the stones. Evan began laughing. Not because anything was funny, because for the first time all year, the land had answered him in a language he could understand. The very stones that had broken his plow were warming his crop. The wall held through the rest of September, then through October. While the rest of Bracken Flats limped toward a ruined harvest, Evan's late crop finished inside a narrow, accidental microclimate. The wind no longer tore moisture out of the soil every afternoon. The plants no longer spent their strength repairing damage. The wall slowed the air by day and breathed warmth at night. Everything that had made the field difficult had become part of the system that protected it. By the first week of November, Evan climbed onto the old Massey and started harvest. He expected a decent crop, maybe enough to keep the bank quiet. He did not expect the auger to bury the wagon before lunch. He did not expect the grain bin to fill so fast that May had to call Amos Bell for a second truck. Amos arrived, stepped down from his pickup, and stopped at the edge of the field. He watched golden wheat pour from the auger in his steady rope. For a long time, he said nothing. Then he took off his cap. "I have farmed this county since I was 16, Amos said. "I have never seen that field do this." Evan looked back at the wall. No one let it. At the elevator, the numbers turned disbelief into record. Evan's yield did not just beat his own farm history. It ran nearly twice the Bracken Flats average for that season, and the grain graded cleaner than anyone expected from a late planting. Less wind stress, less broken stalk, less shriveled kernel. The loan officer, who had stopped sounding friendly now, stood behind his desk with both hands on Evan's check. Evan paid the overdue note, then the operating loan, then the repair bill for the plow. He did not become rich. That was not the miracle. He became unowned. News traveled faster than weather. By winter, Extension agents from the state university were walking Evan's west line with notebooks and thermometers. They measured wind speed on both sides of the wall. They pushed probes into the soil. They returned before dawn to check temperature readings after frost. The results did not make the story smaller. They made it harder to laugh at. The porous stone wall reduced wind without creating the violent downward turbulence of a solid fence. The soil behind it kept more moisture. The stones stored solar heat and released it at night. It was not magic. It was old physics, sitting in a field everyone had been trying to clean. In February, Harlan Pike drove up Evans Lane. The white truck was still clean, but Harlan looked smaller inside it. He walked to the porch without his old grin. For a while, he stared at the wall running along the ridge, dark against the winter grass. "I was wrong," he said. Evan waited. Harlan swallowed. "I spent a fortune crushing my stones. You stacked yours." Then came the real reason he had driven over. "I need to know how you space the gaps. How much angle? How much thickness? What pattern? I can pay you for the plan." Evan looked at the man who had tried to buy his farm when the land was at its lowest. He felt the old anger rise, then pass. "There isn't a plan you can buy," Evan said. "You start with the biggest stones low, you keep the wall heavy, you leave enough holes for the wind to lose itself. And you stop treating the land like every hard thing it gives you is an enemy." Harlan looked down at his polished boots. For once, he had no answer. That spring the old ritual in Bracken Flats changed. When frost lifted new stones into the fields, farmers still cursed them. Some habits are older than wisdom. But they no longer hauled every rock to Cottonmouth Wash. They drove to their western lines. They sorted the flat stones from the round ones. They stacked them with gaps. They built ugly, stubborn, beautiful walls along the fields that had always suffered first. The wind still came. It always would, but now it hit weight before it hit wheat. And Evan Rourke's farm became the lesson. No bank statement, no new machine, and no polished truck could erase. Sometimes, the thing that breaks your hands is not there to stop you. Sometimes, it is waiting for you to learn where it belongs. The wind still came, but now, the weight was on their side.